Today I'm going to be going over how to change your illumination bulbs in your instrument cluster and climate control cluster. This is a 2003 Toyota Tacoma PreRunner. This will cover Toyota Tacomas from 2001 to 2004. Some of the trims in the instrument clusters may look a little different depending on what submodel you have, but the concept is all going to be the same. It's still going to be laid out the same. This concept will also apply to almost any make and model vehicle, but it just may have different trims and different things you may have to take apart. The backlighting has several different bulbs in it that lights up the whole cluster. Sometimes some individual bulbs will burn out and you'll have a section of your instrument cluster that won't light up, or your climate control panel that won't light up. I will go ahead and say though, if you have a situation where you just turn the key on one day and nothing lights up, then more than likely you got a problem with a blown fuse or electrical problem. If you just have like an individual bulb burned out, this will cover the repair. It also covers if you have like one of your warning lights that burn out, you can also replace them bulbs too. So the steps will be generally the same. As you can see on the left hand side of the instrument cluster, it's not illuminating for the background, but the rest of it is. So that shows us that there's not a wiring problem. As far as that, it's actually one of them bulbs burned out in the back. And over here on the climate control settings, there's 3 knobs. These 2 are lighting up and this one's not, and that's causing a problem at night trying to find the defroster. First step you want to take before you take any electrical connections loose is disconnecting the battery, either the positive or negative cable. I'm going to be cleaning these terminals while I'm at it, so I'm going to remove both. The trim in this truck around all the gauges is in 2 pieces. You got one section that's around the radio and the climate control system right here, and then you got one whole piece that goes around the instrument cluster. To actually get to the piece where the instrument cluster is, this one has to be removed first, but that's a good thing also because we got to replace a bulb right here. Sometimes you'll have screws around in here. You want to always remove the ashtray out, and sometimes there'll be some screws hidden up in here. Also, a very common place for screws to be hidden is around the instrument cluster right here at the top. There's 2 screws up there that has to be removed to be able to get it out. There's a lot of snap-in clips around these trim shrouds, so you have to kind of pull around them kind of easily. And if you need some help getting it loose, if it's in a tight spot, they make special tools, trim tools, to pull things loose like that. Or you can take like a flathead screwdriver and put some electrical tape over the end of it to keep from causing any damage. To get this panel off, we got to remove this bottom section and be able to get to some screws. To remove this, there's a screw on this side and one screw on this side. Remove them 2 screws, and then it just pops loose, and then you have to unplug the connections on these 2 AC ports on the back side of it. I'm also going to go ahead and remove these knobs, have them out of the way. There's a couple screws we've got to remove behind here, so this little plate on this one just pops off. On this bottom panel, it's not really screws, it's little clips. On these kind of clips, only thing you do is push in that inside part and then just pull it straight out and it comes right out. Grab it here, pull it loose. It's got a couple clips, just pop them loose. And a little bit of wiggling. You got a wiring harness on both of these plugs. Just wiggle them to unplug them. And set this to the side. Now we got one screw right here we got to remove. Got that one. Now we got one screw right here to remove, and then one screw right here. And I always set my screws in the cup holder so I can keep up with them. You just want to kind of pull it out easily. You're going to have a couple clips removed on the bottom right here. One's for a light for the cigarette ashtray. You got a couple wire harnesses on this port right here. One of these plugs has got like a little trigger you got to push down to remove it. This one you just kind of had to wiggle it out. And then this plug right here for the cigarette lighter, you just unplug, wiggle it around. Once you got the wires loose, just take this panel and set it to the side. Now the 3 screws that holds the climate control system in place, we got to remove them. Bring it up, pull it out gently, then unplug these electrical connections right here. It's got like a little trigger on there you have to push down while you pull out. And off it comes. On the back side of it, there's 3 screw spots. You gotta remove them 3 screws. Then you just got kind of a little clip you gotta pull up. Then you just pull it apart. And it's gonna have a wire connection in there from the control module to the control panel. And here you can access your 3 bulbs back here. That's, if you look at it this way, that'd been for the fan speed, temperature control, and then the one that was burned out, which is whether it's the vent selector. And this is the one that's burned out. So you go to this side, you just twist it, pull the old one out. Here's the new one. About the only place you can find these at is at the dealership. For different models and stuff, they can vary in prices. This one was about $8. Before you handle it, you want to handle it with a glove on. You don't want this oil on your skins getting on that bulb. It'll cause it to prematurely fail. It's got a couple of slots on it that fits in place right there. Slide it in there and just give it a turn clockwise to lock it back in place. You can use a pair of needlenose pliers to twist the bulb back in place. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get a grip on it with your fingers. So if you take them in and out and having a hard time, just take a pair of needlenose pliers. You want to be gentle with it though, so you don't break any of the electronics. Gently turn it. Now it's time to put this unit back together. Slide it back in place. Let that top clip right there click in place, and then put the 3 screws back in. Now we can go ahead and put our climate control panel back in. Now we can start removing this trim shroud around the instrument cluster. We've got to remove these 2 screws at the top. get the bottom part of this panel loose, we're going to have to drop this lower panel under here. There's one Phillips head screw right here, and there's two 10mm bolts, one right here and one on the other side up in the handbrake compartment. Then there's two more at the very bottom of the panel. And just drop it down. You don't have to remove the whole thing, you just want to get it lower so you can get this out with ease. Start popping all this loose. Be very gentle not to break anything. You have to use some force, but you don't want to go crazy with it. It's also a good idea before you pull this out, take the steering wheel, if you have a tilt steering wheel, and lower it all the way down. Up under here to the left side of the panel, there's a screw where this panel bolts to this part of the HVAC vent. That screw's got to be removed. And there's also this HVAC vent where it connects to the vent on the left hand side of the panel. You got to reach up in there and pull it apart from that tubing to be able to get this panel out. To be able to get this shroud out, we have to move this part of the shroud around the steering column. On the bottom side of it, there's one Phillips head screw down there. There's two more screws you have to access that's behind the steering wheel. Put the key to ignition, put it in the on position where you can turn the wheel. And what you're going to do is turn the wheel enough to where you can access each one. And with them two screws out, everything just comes off. The bottom will drop off. Then you can pull the top up. Now we can pull the shroud out. Once you pull it out, you're going to have to unplug these wiring harnesses on the back of it. Once you get all them connectors loose, you can pull it on out. A little wiggling. You want to be careful not to scratch stuff up. You don't have to worry about mixing up these connectors whenever you go to install everything back. Each connector to each switch is different. Now we have access to the instrument cluster. There are 4 screws that hold it in. 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. Now we can pull it out. Now we have to unplug it. Be careful not to pull any wires loose. You got 3 connections, 2 on this side, 1 on the other. Push that in and pull it out. Same for that one. And just like the switches on the panel, they're all different so you can't cross them up. As we take a look at the instrument cluster, it was as far left sided that it wasn't illuminating. So we're going to look directly behind it. As you can see on the back side of it right here, that's going to be the bulb right there. It's got 4 big green bulbs. That's the backlighting, and all these smaller ones is all the warning and caution lights. So all you do to remove it, it's kind of like the way the climate control system was, turn it counterclockwise and remove it. The bulbs actually pull out of this little green grommet unlike the way they were in the climate control system. Just take it, just pull the old bulb out just like that. All you do is just slip it in there till it snaps. I'm replacing them with some clear bulbs. The customer didn't like the orangish tint that the instrument cluster had, so I'm going ahead and replacing all of them with these clear bulbs. Then just put it back in the way it came out. Turn it clockwise till it clicks. Now that we got all the bulbs fixed, it's time to put everything back together. One thing you're going to do is just follow the opposite pattern you took everything apart. Then put this piece trim back on. Connect up all the electrical connections. Don't forget to hook this HVAC vent pipe back up to this vent on this side. And don't forget to put that screw back in. Then snap this panel back in place. Put your 2 screws back in the top of this one. put this lower panel back in place. Don't forget the Phillips head screw and the 4 10mm bolts. Snug them up, but don't over tighten it. You don't want to break any of them plastic pieces. Put your cover back on your steering column and put them 3 screws back in. Wiggle it in there carefully. What I like to do is, in the big hole where the radio goes, slide a gear shift over it. You just kind of twist it around like that. Plug your electrical connections back up. Slide it back in place. Pop your clips in. Now you want to put your 3 last screws in. 1 on each side of this climate control panel. Then 1 down here at the bottom that goes behind the cigarette ashtray. Then you want to put this bottom panel back on. You want to make sure you plug up them 2 power points. Pop it back in place. Then you got these 2 little clips that go on each side of it. Just find a hole and pop it in there. First thing you gotta do is that little inside that popped in, and try to push that back out like that. Stick it in there and then push the inside in, and that locks it in place. Push it out. Stick it in and push the inside. The cigarette lighter right here, which I ain't never used. Slide that back in. And it's easy to take in and out. The only thing you do is pull it out. This top part right here, push it down, it slides out. Pretty simple. I believe the last thing we got left, the cover and the knobs for the climate control panel. One thing this does is just snap in place. She got snapped all around. Put each knob back on. Uh-oh. That one goes there. One thing I want to point out, these knobs have a little metal grommet in it that slides on the post. Sometimes they'll fall out, so you want to make sure you don't lose them, because it ain't going to fit right on there if you don't. Now we have all the back illumination lights working all the way across it, especially on the side where it was burned out. Also over here on the climate control panel, all 3 knobs are lining up like they should. Remember, this one at the beginning was burned out and now it's working. So we've gotten the job done. Everything's successful. I've already cranked it up, the truck ran good. All the switches that I had taken loose, I tried them out and everything worked. You always want to make sure to do that once you get done, just to make sure you didn't leave anything unplugged. I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it and it helped you out, please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.